dreaming, gonna feel it. One day we'll be together on the dance floor.
Today's guest is an actress, director, author, public speaker, brain cancer activist, and CEO of her own company, GRAE Entertainment. Please welcome to the Zoom, Grace Wethor.
Sorry for that mouthful there.
I was gonna say, on your little name tags, you probably have to wait so much because you do so many things. Oh my goodness. First of all, thank you so much for doing this. I am so looking forward to hearing the full story.
Yeah, I'm excited to share it and have a little conversation today.
So I always start behind the resume by talking about how we met, and I I love our story so much. So basically, we're both involved in the Project for Girls. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I know that you've been a part of that longer than I have.
Yeah, I think I applied to this contest when I was like 14 years old. Didn't do a very good job on the submission. They were like, "Okay, sweetie, you got to write a little more." I was like, "Okay." She's like, "Why don't you try again?" I was like, "Okay." And then I ended up being one of the final girls selected, and so I got to do a photo shoot in LA, and it's kind of just a group of young girls who were all doing really extraordinary things, and they wrote a story about me when I was really young, and it's kind of just out there. And then fast forward to now, I don't know if you want to share the little
Well,
anecdote.
then I participated in Project for Girls. Shout out to Lori Levenfeld if you're watching
Yes.
this.
Hi, Lori.
I remember when I was doing my research, I remember reading your story, being blown away. So I knew your name, I knew who you were. I just didn't put the pieces together when we were actually meeting. But fast forward the other weekend, we're at a birthday party and we ended up talking for half an hour. And then I said to you, "Oh, have you heard of someone named Grace Wethor?"
I looked at you and I said, "I am Grace Wethor." And you know what, Julia, I just have to say, I know that seems, maybe I'm just taking this way too deep, but for me that was actually a really cool moment because I had just casually mentioned to you that I was involved in advocacy for pediatric cancer in general. I didn't really say why. I didn't tell you much of my personal story, but you're like, "Oh, that's so interesting. It reminds me of this girl I read about. Have you ever heard of Grace Wethor?" And I was like, "Yeah." And so yeah, I have actually. But having that moment where I realized that the work I was doing in advocacy was bigger than who I was as a person. It was actually really exciting because I think as young people in the media, I mean, with social media, everyone is in the media in 2022.
Right.
And so to realize that the good I was doing for the world was bigger than my face or where I was or what events I was at or what I wore, because I think we think about those things a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
It was really exciting. So I know that was just a funny little moment, but it actually meant a lot to me that you had read about my work and you thought it was interesting enough to bring up to a stranger at the time. So I appreciate that.
I so know what you mean, and you're so right. You don't know who knows of you, essentially.
Yeah.
Not only do you not know who's read your story, but you don't know who is impacted.
Yeah.
You know? Oh, I'm so glad. That was just so funny. I really I truly did not. I think because you told me your name was Grace, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I read it so long ago, and I didn't know that was. Anyway, it was just a funny moment.
It was fun.
I'm so glad that we met and we're doing this. And I just want to start from I mean, I know some of these things, but for those of you who don't, who are watching, I want us to go back, where were you born? What were you like as a kid? What were the passions? What were the dreams? And then how did your life turn into being everything that you are now?
Yeah, so I was born in Uptown Minneapolis in Minnesota. So I'm very much a city kid, even though I'm from the Midwest. And I think that worked out really well in my favor because I kind of had both sides of that to myself. I'd spend summers on the lake and then winter in downtown Minneapolis. So I had kind of creativity always in me. Um, I was I thought I was a great kid. The teachers probably would not have agreed with that topic of conversation. I got in trouble in school a lot, but it wasn't for things that you would think of. It was for doing a dance number in the middle of math class or trying to organize a play in the lunchroom, which is not what you're supposed to be doing at private Catholic school with uniforms. So
Yeah.
I got in trouble a lot, but I think all of those times where teachers actually did see me and appreciated what I was doing and rewarded it in a way kind of under the table, it made me a lot of who I am today. And it kind of balanced that creativity side of me and business side of me. So I'm actually very grateful for having to go through that time as a kid. But that was kind of my middle school experience, just a very crazy, wild child. But then eventually when I was 13, where it kind of changed. I had always had a passion for entertainment. I had filmed everything I did. I always wanted to act. I always wanted to be in LA. I was kind of like, when I finish high school, I'm going to LA. That was always the plan. But then it came a little bit sooner than I thought it was going to. When I turned 13, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor on January 9th of 2015. And it's in the brainstem, which is the deepest part of the brain, which means unfortunately surgery is really, really hard to do. And chemotherapy and radiation have a very slim chance of working. So tumors in this area of the brain usually have about an 8% chance of survival for 6 months. And I was told that there was nowhere on earth my family would be able to take me that would be able to help me, which is not something that people really realize. In the most medically advanced and wealthiest country in the world, we don't have options still to this day. Neil Armstrong's daughter, Karen, died of a tumor in the same area of the brain as my own in 1962, and we have not improved treatment to this day. So it's just like, it's one of those things where it's like, we just have a really long way to go. I did not know any of that at the time. I did not know before it affected my family personally. All I knew is that I thought I might have 6 months and that was it. And I had to do something with it. And it's just me and my mom, which I think was set up to make this situation great. And so we rented an apartment over the phone in LA. I don't recommend doing that. I just put that out there all the time. But we did it. We were kind of on our, crazy adventure. And I moved out here at 13 and I started just doing anything that inspired me. Every day was an adventure. I didn't care what it was. I didn't care if it would further my career. I didn't care what it was. As long as I was interested in it and it sparked some amount of creativity or joy in me, I did it. And it led me on a lot of crazy adventures. It landed me in fashion weeks all over the world. It landed me in a position as an it girl at Teen Vogue, which is where I think I developed a lot of my sense of fashion and using fashion as a way to make me feel better. I was just in New York for New York Fashion Week, and I had a conversation in an interview with Anna Wintour, who's the editor-in-chief of Vogue. And I was talking to her about how on my sickest days, when I could not get out of bed and I could not do anything, I would still get up and get dressed. I would get dressed in a cool outfit and then I would lay back down in my cool outfit. But having that fashion to kind of get me through those dark days, it really propelled me forward and it gave me so much confidence and strength. And she mentioned to me that she always does the same thing. And so, to realize that fashion can be healing, I think that also plays in a lot to me as an actor and me as a director, developing these characters to kind of help me get through these situations. So everything I did, whether it seemed connected to my career or not, fashion, acting, modeling on accident, all of these things, working at Teen Vogue, they all kind of came together to like build a career that was beyond my wildest imagination. So I developed these random skills in random places. And now we're here 7 years later, stable tumor, doing my thing, giving back to the community that gave so much to me, while also being creative and trying to be my true self and best self every day. So
My goodness.
sorry, it's a spew, but yeah.
No, that's incredible. I was talking to a mentor the other day, and we were talking about paving your own path, which I feel like every artist is doing essentially, right? And how when those yeses come along, not even yeses that others necessarily say to you, but like there's a spark in you and you say yes to it, it's kind of like following the yellow brick road a little bit. Follow your intuition. You hear these yeses that maybe take you off of the path, so you think, but like that actually is paving your own path to your own greatness. And I love that you are in so many different fields, but like all tied together into your individual creative journey. Like I just think that's so beautiful. And I don't know, as artists, we just envision this one road that we have to follow. Like if I'm an actor, I keep my blinders on, but it's like, why live that way? Like there's so much to see if you just take your blinders off. So I love that. And also, what if we all just like lived that way of like following adventure and doing what lights us up, and like that's just so incredible. So I'm sure you've inspired everyone in your life to live that way. I'm sure it's made a huge impact.
I try. I think, it's interesting because I think I just function in the way I think I should function. And a lot of people say that is inspiring to them in some way. I don't feel inspiring all the
Yeah.
time. But I'd say a lot of it is making sure that I have those people around me that can kind of like check me in a way. I think I'm really, really lucky to like have a mom who understands me, and like, she was the one who always implemented that. I came out here wanting to be the most successful, whatever. Like I was like fully in it. And she would always say, Grace, everything is an experiment. We do not know if it's going to go good or bad. It is an experiment. Like, just take it as it is. You can't change most things that happen. And I think especially having the brain tumor was like that first lesson. I cannot change what has happened to me, but I can decide how I want to react. I could be in bed all day feeling sorry for myself. And there were days that I did that. Obviously, I had to like get through it mentally and physically. I was very ill too. But making that decision to like get up and say, this is an adventure, this is an experiment. Nothing is riding on me becoming successful. That's all pressure I'm putting on myself. Life is meant to have fun and live. And if you can do what you love as a job, that is wonderful. And that's what we should all be like looking towards, to be creatively fulfilled, to do what we want to do in life, to love what we do. And so having my mom to kind of like keep me on track when I was like stressing about things or feeling like I wasn't succeeding enough or feeling like I wasn't accomplishing enough, to kind of have somebody who to like check me. So I was very lucky to have that. But yeah, we're kind of a good team. So yeah, my family's great.
You stepping into your power and your purpose and your light and you filling you up is what is like how you're able to make the greatest difference in the world, you know? And I think some people, they don't view it as like being selfish to do what you love, but I don't know, there's like an ounce of not guilt, but you know what I mean? Sometimes you're like, there's that feeling, but like you just said, that's kind of why we're here. Like figure out what fills you up, do it to the max, and then it's gonna overflow, and that's how you make a difference, you know?
I always said that, actually, like in my own little way. I always said, for me, everything I do creatively is working towards building a platform to then speak about what means a lot to me. So like I'm very, very passionate about healthcare advocacy and pediatric cancers, just because that's what I've been through and that's what's kind of touched my heart and my soul. But if I can build a platform and build a career through the thing that I feel I'm naturally talented at and I love, like it literally makes me cry when I'm on set because I just love it so much. If I can like bring those two worlds together of my love and talent and passion, I feel like that's like a great little equation, And so I think if you can find a way to do what you do and do it good and put what you love into what you do, it can change the world, like you said.
You found out that you had the brain tumor and you moved to LA. How did you get involved in things? Like you just like how?
I mean, I think it's a lot about just like getting into rooms that you don't necessarily deserve to be in at the time, but then proving that you do deserve to be there. I think it's like, I loved this. I was listening to an interview the other day about Zendaya. She's like, I would show up to all these events that I did not need to be in.
I saw that one.
And she's like, but I would dress like I needed to be there. And everyone would be like, who is that? And then she would prove that she deserved to be there too.
Yes.
And I think it's a lot of that. It's a lot of, I mean, I was the 13-year-old kid doing PowerPoint presentations to like convince my parents of things and like sending cold emails. Like the amount of things you can get if you just like ask for them is crazy. But I think it was also realizing, and you said this earlier, like taking those yeses, and it's even if it's not a yes that someone else gives to you, I think it's really important to, in this industry, especially for actors and directors and people in film and entertainment, to give yourself yeses. I know that sounds really crazy, but for me, that was my biggest thing. My first book was fully self-published, and now it's an Amazon bestseller in its category. And that was because I tried to do all my submissions for whatever, publicists, agents, book deals, whatever. And it just wasn't feeling right. They wanted me to change things, and it just wasn't clicking. And I was like, I have this story in me. I have social media. I feel like I can do this myself. And I just decided, I gave myself a deadline for when the book was due, as if I was my own publisher.
How old were you?
I was 15 when I started it. I started the book, 16 when it came out. But that's what I'm saying. I was so frustrated at the time. I was like, I have to give myself the yes. If no one else is going to give it to me right now, and I want to do this right now,
Mhm.
Sometimes that's my biggest downfall. I'm not very patient now because of that. But I know what projects I can do on my own, and I know which things I need help with. And that was one of those moments where I was like, I'm going to do it for myself and I'm going to give myself the yes. And I just did it. And it ended up being the best way for that project to move forward. And I've done that myself with films. I've worked on pitches and I was like, I'm going to give myself the yes on this one and just do it. And it was life changing because when I started viewing myself as a position of power in my own life, I gained that confidence of knowing I had that power. And then I was able to move through the world as kind of a different person. Like I held my own power in a way. And then other people started recognizing that too. And so I was getting signed to like the top agencies, and I had a dream manager and I signed with them just randomly. Like this is what I'm saying. It's like just having that power and starting to build your own platform and almost maneuvering through the world as if you are the person you want to be already is like
Oh my
it
goodness.
works really well. They're like blind confidence, the amount of things you can get done if you're just like blindly confident is really great. So
Oh,
I'm here and I have my dream team that I literally wrote in notebooks 5-6 years ago. I would walk by the buildings of the agency and the manager every day. I live right by them and I would just be like, thank you. And my mom every day would walk by and she'd be like, thank you for signing Grace. I don't know anybody in there. I have no connections in the industry. My family's not in film and entertainment. I had never been to LA before I moved here. And now I'm in the door and hopefully trying to open it for other people too.
that is so beautiful. Back to what you were saying about simply asking. So the
Yeah.
day that I got involved with Project for Girls, I came across the website, the social media. I read your story, I read some other stories. I was so impacted, and Lori's just seemed so cool. I wanted to be a part of it. And I work in the special needs theater community, and I was like, I would love to share my story.
Yeah.
So I sent a DM to Lori. I said, hi, this is me. This is my story. If this resonates with you, awesome. I would love to work with you.
Ask people.
That is how it happened. It's not always going to be a yes, but even if it's like 1 out of 10, that's one more opportunity that you wouldn't have gotten if you hadn't asked.
For sure. 100%. It's a little crazy, but like, why not?
Why not?
That's my thing. I'm like, well, yeah, I think to be able to succeed in some of these things, you have to be a little crazy because you get told so many times no. You have to be so confident in yourself and your need to do this. And you're like, no, I have to. And
Right.
that can be a lot of pressure sometimes. I think it's good to find a balance. I'm working on that myself too. But even just being like, no, I'm gonna do this whether you tell me no or not. And so I'm sorry if this isn't gonna work out, but I'm gonna figure out another way to do it because I just know that I have to.
Mm.
I have to be a little crazy, I think, to do that over and over. What do they say? The definition of insanity is like doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. It's like
Yeah.
a little bit, but I like it. It's working out. So I'd say go for it. Be a little crazy.
Always who you were. This just like ambitious, doesn't take no for an answer. Is that just like the person that you've always been?
Yes. I don't think I think I had to work hard to hone it into skills and into a craft and into like a job. Um, but yeah, I think I was, and you hear this a lot. It's always like, oh, I was the kid with the camcorder in the basement making SNL skits when I was 6 years old. And it's like, yeah, of course you've been working on this since you were very young. Like, of course you're going to be good at it.
Yeah.
By the time you're 20, it's like, because people are always like, you're so young. And I'm like, yeah, but you didn't see the hours and hours I spent in my basement working. Like, I would order like green screens and I was like that kid. And so I mean, I'd been working in iMovie since I was like literally 6 years old. My school had laptops and I was like an iMovie whiz. I'm like editing like crazy. I would edit all of the teachers' videos and I would do videos for the school. So like, they're like, oh my God, you're so young. I'm like, I've been doing this for
Right.
16, 17 years, which is longer than like a lot of people's like careers. Finding those things that you did naturally as a child, whatever that may be, like if you were bored in your room, what were you doing? And then figure out a way to turn that into actual scales in a job. It took me a while. You know, I find paintings of like things that I did when I was little, and I'm like, oh no, it makes total sense now. It was like a story. It was a couple weeks ago. I went and celebrated the Oscars with the Academy, and I had picked this red dress when I think I did it in 2010. So I was like 10, 11 years old, and I had painted a dress in this giant notebook, and it said Oscars 2010. And then we found the notebook like a couple weeks before, and we're switching the whole look. And so I wore the dress that I designed when I was 10 years old to the Oscars. And it was like, oh, yeah, this just makes sense. Like, it's been years and years in the making.
Yes.
But you don't realize when it's like, when what you do is just who you are. I think you don't realize all those little things that kind of, all those little synchronicities that just end up lining up. And so I think that's kind of a good way to look at what you really should be doing. I kind of had to go through a crazy, like, life turbulent event to recognize what I was actually supposed to be doing, which is extreme. You don't need to switch up your whole life and move across the country because you have 6 months to live. That's the weird abnormal way to do it. But just recognizing what you do naturally when you're by yourself and who you really are, I think you discover a lot more than you think you will.
Yes, 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 yeah. Like literally just like yes to everything. So you got to LA and you just opened doors for yourself and knocked down the doors when they weren't opening and all of that. What was like the dream? Was it to act, direct, fashion, write, speak?
I think in the beginning, the dream started as purely acting. And I think that was mainly because that was what I had access to as a kid from Minnesota. The only thing you ever see is actors. I didn't know what a director did. I mean, like, I knew they existed, but I didn't know what they did. I didn't know what a producer like was when I was 11, 12 years old. I knew that I was like, yeah, that's a job, but like, what does that mean? And now for me, I think the dream has expanded. Acting is still a love of mine. I think there's nothing that beats being able to transform into a character and like get lost in words. But it's hard. And it is a taxing, consuming job that physically is very demanding. And I think there's some people who are naturally into that and it energizes them. I am someone who has to fight really hard to do that. And so I think I am wanting to act for a very long time, and it is still my sole love, but I think there's other ways for me to hone my creativity in between those projects that still fulfill me creatively. So there's definitely some dream roles that I haven't had the chance to play yet, but yeah, I think it expanded because I realized I loved film so much as a whole. I think for me, what I really fell in love with was the process from script to development to setting to characters to post-production to marketing. I loved every single aspect of it. So in a way, although acting is my true love, it wasn't enough of the process. I wanted more. I was like, wait, I have to go home now and you guys get to go and do more? Like, I didn't understand. I was like, what? I want to see the editing. Like, it wasn't enough for me. And so I always try to say I don't like to direct and act. I don't like to direct things that I'm also acting in. It's very hard. I've done it a lot. And I feel like you get kind of like tied. There was one time I was like on a set. I was like wearing my costume, running to the monitors, checking them, then running back to my mark and like doing the scene. And then people were slating it. And then I was running back to Video Village, checking it again. I was sweating so bad. And it was my first day on the set and the guys had just gotten off of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I was like, oh my God, I need to like pull it together. My dress is like down at I had it unzipped and down at my waist. There was no air conditioning because sound.
Right.
That was the day I vowed to myself. I was like, I think I'll have a second director on set when I'm acting. Yeah, I think it's for me, it's finding that kind of creative process throughout. So there are definitely stories where I feel like there's one character that I'm drawn to, and that one character is exactly the person I need to be. And that's my contribution. And then there are stories where I care more about the message that it's telling him than an individual. And that's how I know I need to be involved more than just the actor. So it's project by project, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so then how did your company, GRAE Entertainment, how did that come about?
I always say the company founded itself. And I try to do that with all my business ventures because I am a person of many ideas. And I'm like, this is the best thing I've ever come up with. And then like a week later, I've done like 50 decks and like 4 websites. And I'm like, maybe this wasn't the best idea I've ever put together. But I always say the company existed, the work was happening, and it needed a name for tax purposes. Like that's kind of how I viewed it. It was like, yeah, this is kind of like happening too much. We need to put a brand and a logo to it. And so I was 17 at the time, turning 18. And when I turned 18, I knew that I would be allowed to invest in companies and own shares of luxury brands. And so it was kind of in preparation for that in a way, but I was also doing a lot of media projects already and working on set. And so there was really just a way to house everything in one place. And so then when I turned 18, the company started investing in different luxury brands. And so our whole mission is that we monitor the world of fashion and luxury and film from the inside out. So we're invested in these large companies, and then we're able to kind of get that insider look and then develop things on the other side as well. So we have an entertainment company, and then we have an investment side of it. And so it's kind of like a lot happening at once, but it's all of me in one company. So I think it worked out pretty well. It's if I was a company, this would be it. So
Oh my God. And then when you moved to LA, were you in like middle school at the time? And then did you continue with school?
yeah, so I was in 7th grade. I left 7th grade, guys. It was a lot. I think being a kid from the Midwest, where not bashing on volleyball, but that was like the thing. I was signed up for volleyball too, guys. Don't worry, I'm not hating on anybody, but like that was the thing. Everyone did the same sport, everyone was on the same team, and everybody carpooled, and that was kind of it. And so anytime I wanted to do something that was kind of different or out of the ordinary, it got a lot of backlash. And so there was kind of a point where I was like, okay, this just isn't helping me anymore. It's hurting a lot more than it's helping. And I think education is very important, but I'm like, there's got to be a better way to pursue this in a way that works for me. So I started online school in the middle of 7th grade, right after I was diagnosed. So yeah, it was kind of one of those things that was building up for a while. And I'm very, very grateful for that part of my education. I think being in that strict environment allowed me to kind of like learn how to control my creativity and put it into this perspective. So I'm like, it made me who I am for sure. But then I was able to kind of like leave and go to online school and be able to kind of build my curriculum around what I wanted to learn. And suddenly I was in film classes and music classes, and I was like, this is me. Yeah. So I did online school for the rest of high school.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Wow, wow. And then you did a TED Talk, which is
Yeah.
so cool. How was that experience?
It was good. That was my first time ever speaking in public about my story. I had mentioned it to people like kind of casually, but it had never been built into something. So I was 15 when I gave the TED Talk. I was 13 when I was diagnosed. So it took me like a little while to kind of compose myself and understand what my story meant to me. But it was just my opportunity to literally go out there and just share the baseline of what had happened to me. It feels like kind of the start in a way. I've been saying, I'm like, I gotta do another TED Talk that's kind of an updated version. But it was simply just kind of about my diagnosis and how I got into where I was, and trying to show people that the events that happen to you aren't who you are. They don't define you as a person. Your decisions are all up to you. And I think that's really important to remember. Like things happen and you can't change them, but what you decide to do with them and how you decide to look at them from your mindset is 100% up to you. So, yeah.
Wow, wow. Um, so what are the huge goals? Like, what are the dreams?
um, we're definitely on the way. We're definitely getting there. I think it's just to make movies for the rest of my life, and to do it for stories that mean a lot to me. I think that's what's really important. I feel like there's a lot of stories that I haven't seen told exactly how I want them to tell. Right now, for the future, I think it's going to be predominantly health stories, just because that's what I feel like is currently missing. But I have a really big passion for young people and coming of age movies, and kind of that that era, because I feel like it is so hard to write, and it's mainly written by older people trying to place the teenage experience into a film. And I think that's really hard. So for my foreseeable future, I think that's really the space I want to be in. That'll probably change as I grow up and feel like I've done enough of that.
Mhm.
But I think film is my love, and I think it'll be there for a long time.
Yeah. Wow. What advice would you give to a young person who just found out they were diagnosed with a disease, or yeah, like what would you say to them?
I think hmm, it's really hard when you're diagnosed with a disease, because I think you feel like you should be doing a lot of things and you can't always. And so I think it's recognizing that it is okay to take a break. Your life is changing overnight, literally. And suddenly all of those things that you thought were so important, like your math test or who was fighting with who, they do not matter at all. All of a sudden, those little things like being around your family and playing the guitar and watching your favorite show and laughing and smiling, those are the things that are your entire life.
Mhm.
And so I think it's recognizing that it is okay to take a break, and it's okay to reevaluate. That's like my favorite word. It's reevaluating. When things are going wrong, that's the other thing. They're never actually going wrong. There are things that seem like they're bad and they're happening, and you're like, oh my God, this is bad. This is not the outcome I wanted. I found that all of those things ended up 10 times better, or the opportunity was not meant for me. And so I think recognizing those moments where you feel like everything is just going wrong, just sitting down. I always love a good notebook and just reevaluating your current situation with what you've got. You can't go back, you can't change things, but here's where we are, and let's start here as our baseline and kind of build up from there. My mom always said, she was like, you can be sad, but you can't be sad for too long.
Mhm.
You're allowed to grieve and mourn this period of your life, but like you can't let it affect your new life that you're going into, because then you're taking your own life away from yourself, and that's just a waste of time. So I think it's not bottling it in, but it's recognizing when it's like, hey, it's my time to kind of start over and move along and realize what my new normal is kind of.
Right. Ah, oh my gosh. I'm so inspired. I knew I would be. I'm so inspired. What do you want? I love asking this question. What do you want your legacy to be?
Oh gosh.
I
uh,
know, a little casual.
I hope it's, and I think it will be, films that people can watch forever and feel like they belong and feel like they're part of something in a way. I've been working on this one movie for the past year or so, and I think it's so weird because I'm literally only 20, but I think once it's out there, it's going to be a big part of who I am for the rest of my life, because it focuses on that concept of being unseen by the world around you. And I think that's something that kids with illnesses face a lot, but I think everyone faces, young and old. We move through the world as if everyone around us can't see us, because people can't hear what we're thinking all of the time. I think everyone feels that way because we've only ever lived in our own body, like, and we watch everyone else from an outside perspective. So I hope that I'm able to use my talent and use the things that I love to create art that makes people feel like they have a place. So
Wow, that is so beautiful. What are you up to right now? Like, do you have any current projects you could talk about?
yeah, on the advocacy side of things, this is kind of taking over my life at the moment, which I am 100% happy about. I focus a lot on brain cancer legislation and advocacy in Washington, D.C., and at the White House and at the Capitol. So a lot of my weekdays are spent on Zoom with members of Congress and their aides, kind of just explaining the basics of what it means to be someone living with a brain tumor and the help that we need and this community so desperately needs. So we're working on a couple of different pieces of legislation right now, and we have hundreds of co-sponsors. So we have hope that we will hopefully be able to get a vote soon.
Yeah.
We are going to the White House in May.
Wow.
It's a lot, but I think it's a really, really good step forward. And for the first time, we're kind of seeing hope in the brain cancer community, which is like unbelievable because when I was diagnosed, there was literally nothing. Like, there's moms on there and they talk about, they're like, when my kid was diagnosed, I was told that it's just kind of one of those sad, rare orphan diseases and there's nowhere you can go and the money's not big enough for research incentive. And like, we are finally at the point where it's like, oh no, there's things that might work and
Wow.
there's hope and there's like this little glimmer of light. It's very far away, but for the first time we're actually seeing therapies that may help. We need a lot more money, but we're on our way, and I think that's really exciting. On the film side of things, it's a lot of like quiet work right now, which is a really fun balance for me. A lot of writing that project that I mentioned to you, it's I don't want to rush it. Like I was saying earlier, I rush a lot of things, but I think this is going to be a really big one and it'll be a part of GRAE. So if you follow there, you'll find out all about it. But yeah, I think this project kind of blending my worlds of illness and my worlds of film is going to be a really exciting collaboration. So yeah, a lot of fun things coming.
Who are your dream like actors and actresses to be a part of Grey films?
Oh my. Um I think it's like we literally I don't want to say too much, but like literally to my right, I have a mood board with like headshots of everybody. I don't want to jinx it. But I think it's for me, it's those young people I think who have a really unique perspective of the world and bring that into their characters. Um, I think it's really hard. I mean, people that I've been watching kind of doing it recently, I think Elle Fanning's in a show right now that's really doing it well. And like Caitlin Dever always brings something really great to the screen. And Booksmart's just like incredible. Beanie Feldstein, like all of them. I think when you can bring what makes you unique as a person to the screen in a way that's not even comedic, but it is comedic because of who you are and you're truly just being yourself. I think there's something magical about that, and it's really hard to replicate that. And in coming of age and teen films, I think that's so necessary. So I think I'm passionate and excited to work with any actor who can bring themselves and their quirkiness to screen.
What advice would you give your hmm, self? But I guess there's like,
There's so many me's.
yeah.
But
What advice would you give your like 12-year-old self?
just don't listen to people. um, Especially people who have nothing to do with what you want to do. I think it is okay to take advice from people who are in the position that you want to be in. I think that's really valuable. I think it's really good to listen to people. But I think I just listened too much to kids around me. Um, and it took a really long time to get out of that. I'm gonna be honest with you. It took years of trying to get out of that mentality of caring what these people who literally are not even a part of my life think. I got bullied a lot on social media around that time, around 12, 13, when I was moving out here and kind of doing my own thing. Um, and I literally had to like delete Instagram for a while because I was getting like death threats. It was like a whole thing. Yeah, it was a lot. So that's my first thing. If you're getting hate online, just know like maybe you're doing something unique and that's really good. So yeah, keep being you, as cliche as it sounds. But I think for me, I just let that get into my head for so long. And I spent so much energy and time on it. And now I'm like totally over it. And it's been so freeing to just be like, oh, I really don't care. And it's allowed me to be such a better actor too. I've recognized that I got put into so many like intense acting situations from like classes to sets and like being able to actually like think about my performance and not what people were thinking about my performance. Oh, I wouldn't be here if I didn't deserve to be here. So I'm gonna focus on me and myself and what I want to do. So yeah, 12-year-old Grace, I think, needs to get off the internet and realize that if they're not doing what you want to do, just block it out, especially if it's rude. You don't need it. Doesn't help anybody. So
Yeah, but not only kids who are like rude, even when you're taking advice from people you respect, like
yeah.
no one can hear like the voices and dreams and visions you have for yourself. Everyone's on their own path. Everyone's just trying to do the best they can. So it's like it's different though when you're hearing advice or someone who you respect means well, but it might like not right with you, and you're like, oh, I don't know if that is the path for me. And like that's a whole different scenario. And you need like a lot of your own strength to be like, I respect you, I appreciate your words of encouragement, but I'm gonna like listen to my own inner voice.
Yeah. I think it's like one of those kind of like take it and leave it situations, especially when it's like this high of stakes. Like you have to be fully confident in yourself in order to succeed in the entertainment industry. Because if you're not, you're going to quit before you get there. It takes forever to get where you want to be. There are people who've been in the industry for 40 years and are in the top movies of the year, and they're still not where they want to be. And so I think it's like one of those things where if it resonates with you and it pushes you and it drives you to be better, that's one thing. But if it just doesn't feel like it's for you, you can just like let that go. It may work for someone else, it may not. I remember this acting coach. I had been to so many acting coaches, and they were saying all these things about like, oh, well, you need to like torture yourself and like do all this stuff. And it just never felt right to me. I was like, this isn't working. They would always try to use like brain tumor stuff to like bring stuff up. I'm like, that's just not working for me for some reason. And this one coach, he came up to me and he was like, you look like you're trying to be sad. And I was like, well, I mean, yeah. And he was like, you don't have to be sad. Your job is to convince the audience that you're sad. And that can be done differently for every single person. Some people act sad because they are sad. That works for some people. But he's like, but you always have a notebook and you always have lists and you always have steps and you have a checklist. And he was like, so think about it in that way. And I was like, that makes so much, that's who I am. And so it was recognizing that to play sad, I didn't have to be sad. For me, it was going through a checklist of like, where is my breathing? Where is my music? I always have headphones in on set. Where is my, where are my eyes being placed? How am I like holding my hands and my feet? And so it's like finding your craft, whatever it may be, directing, acting, writing, producing. It's about finding the way that works for you, not the way that it's supposed to be done. Because otherwise there would be no unique actors or there would be no groundbreaking things. If we all just follow the same book, like nothing new is going to be accomplished or achieved. So I think it's recognizing that like you can find your own way to do it. There's no right or wrong way to do anything.
Right. And to add on to that, when we're little, before it's like a career or before it's a job with an income, we follow our creativity because it makes us happy. So it's like, if you're going to pursue that, it doesn't sound fun to me to like follow someone else's road. Like, I can do something else. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't sound fulfilling. I think we have to check in with ourselves a lot on this path of like being an artist. It's like, okay, I'm doing this to begin with because I love it and it fuels my fire in my soul. And of course, doesn't mean that every part of it is easy or exactly the way.
Hard, yeah.
Like you said, if it doesn't feel right to you, and if you're not like genuinely enjoying 95% of the process, like you kind of have to, like you said, reevaluate.
Yeah. And I'm not saying don't push yourself. There are days on these scenes where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fall over. I'm putting so much energy into this. But like, that's what makes it so interesting to me. Yeah. Like that is what it takes to get that character to do what I need to do. And so I think it's not like being lazy or making it not hard. It's just finding that your own way to do the things and get to that place and do the work in a way where it fuels you and doesn't drain you.
Yeah. How can people keep in touch and follow up with everything that you're doing?
I'm on Instagram. That's kind of my thing. I use it like a scrapbook. It's just Grace Wethor. My last name's Wethor. And then if you want to keep up with GRAE, we're just GRAEINC, GRAE Inc. on Instagram. But yeah, everything kind of film related's over there. Everything kind of fun and advocacy and film related's on mine. So whatever you're interested in.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for sharing your story. You should like write a memoir. I mean, have you?
The one was a little bit there. It was my diagnosis story. I think I should live a little more and then I'll write another one. It's definitely in me though.
Yeah, a memoir one day. You need like a full biopic, the whole thing. The whole thing. Oh my gosh. Okay. We won't talk about it yet then. I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.